of the country's biggest and most expensive cities saw hundreds of thousands of people move away in the first year of the pandemic. And in some cases, they're settling in places that might not be able to handle them. Newsy National correspondent James Packard tells us what's driving the trend.
A great American game of musical chairs showing up in new census data from the first year of the pandemic.
It's incredible what's gone on in some big cities.
Numbers showing Americans leaving the country's biggest and most expensive cities in droves, moving south and west and landing in small and mid-sized cities.
I think cost of living is the biggest driver, and connected to that would be remote work.
In San Francisco, a decline of 116,000. Los Angeles down 176,000. And New York losing 328,000 residents from mid-2020 to mid-2021.
Like San Francisco, for example, the median home price is about $1.5 million.
In some cities, the atrophy was in part a result of rising prices and movement as work-from-home options expanded.
This was a trend that was in place even before COVID, but it's gotten worse, where people were reluctant to have kids in 2020 and 21.
Climate change, part of that reluctance, as in the West, growing cities like Phoenix and Las Vegas face the reality that they may not have everything they need.
How many people can we squeeze into the Las Vegas Valley? There's a limited amount of water. It's getting drier. It's getting hotter. The climate crisis is real. How are we going to deal with that as we develop into the future?
And with an economy still reeling from a crisis that upended its usual balance, the housing market in places like Boise, Idaho is starting to cool off.
The western half of the U.S. has been more overpriced, relatively speaking, than the eastern half. So it might make sense that you would see this beginning in the West.
In the long run, it's the growing cities like Houston and Dallas that will fare better in the long run, according to experts. Some caution this could just be an anomaly, even if some parts of it stick around.
Even if remote work is not quite as common as it was at the height of the pandemic, I do think that there is really an increasing willingness on the part of employers to let people work from home at least some of the time. And what we see in our research is that flexibility is actually the biggest driver of workplace happiness, even more so than how much you get paid.
A reshuffling of American priorities amid an unprecedented deadly outbreak.
Now, I think immigration may end up being kind of the fix for this, like when that rebounds, and I think it's starting to as COVID's getting better, because I don't really see this trend of fewer births changing in any big way.